Tint shop owners, are you still hearing, I'm going to shop around, I need to talk to my wife, or even worse, they just say thank you and they hang up? If you're still hearing these objections, I'm going to give you the exact step-by-step sales process that we use so that you can double your closing rate this week. So if you're getting, a decent amount of leads, but you're not able to convert them, or if you're hearing these objections, you're getting a ton of price shoppers and tire kickers saying, I'm just going to shop around, I'm going to talk to my wife, or even worse, they'll just say thank you, they hang up. I want to show you how we helped Darren go from 9 bookings a week to 9 bookings in just 2 days with the same amount of leads. Nothing changed in his ads. His leads was the same. We just tweaked his sales process and he started booking double the amount of jobs. So I'm going to show you that. And if we see over here, he was basically getting 9 bookings before, and you can see like we had a problem. I said, hey, we need to figure this out. We need to change the sales stuff. And then after that, we said 9 bookings, 2 days. He told his front desk person that it's working. You can see all of these bookings. So again, same exact leads, higher conversion rates. And by the way, if you think this is not going to work for me because I charge too much, Darren's shop is one of, if not the highest priced in his area. He's in a very, very saturated market somewhere in Florida, by the way, and he charges about $600 for like just the sides and rear in his ceramic film. So what was happening before? He was basically getting a ton of leads, and what would happen is like the lead would come in, they would ask for a quote, and his front desk person would just give the quote. And that's what I call being an order taker. So if someone asks you like how much it is and you simply give the price, you're basically just being an order taker, and it's like working at a restaurant, right? Someone's like, hey, what's the price? This is the price. You have to stop being an order taker and you need to start being a salesperson. And by the way, you can do it without sounding pushy, without sounding salesy. You don't have to do that, like sound pushy or salesy, to actually get good at sales. And it's a new way of selling, just by asking questions, by guiding the conversation, by educating the prospect so that you can control the outcome rather than hope that the person books. So this is, I call it the 3-step closing framework. I'm going to walk you through it. But the first thing you need to do is throw out the door that you need to give the price when they ask for the price. I don't want you to give the price. I don't want the conversation to last less than 1 minute. Do not do that, because they're never going to end up booking, especially if you're charging $600 for window tint. They're just never going to book if they hear like someone else is charging $300. So you have to ask a few specific questions to build the sale. The first thing is you need to build with their why, or basically the reason why they want the tint. So you have to ask them like, what actually has you looking for tint? Or like, people get tint for different reasons. Like, what has you looking for tint, or what has you wanting tint, just to see if I can help. Okay. And it's very important that you get this, because they're going to mention, hey, it's the heat. They're going to mention it's the privacy. They're going to mention it's the glare. Now, this gets them, by the way, not just to tell you why they want the tint, but they actually internalize, or they think themselves, okay, this is why I want the tint. And they'll remember that feeling in their mind. And to double down on this, let's say someone wants it for the heat, or someone wants it for the privacy, or someone wants it from the glare. You can say like, okay, when you say that, because we speak to like 5 to 10 people every single day wanting it just for the heat. Like, what do you mean specifically, like when you say heat? Can you give me an example? Okay. And then they will relive that experience or the pain. And that is what actually gets people to buy, not just like some surface level thing. So what do I mean by this? If I ask them, hey, like, can you give me an example? Like what actually happened recently? And they tell me about the time where, they were coming back from work, they got into the car, and like their just like arms are burning because they touched this thing. And that happens, by the way. People will tell you the reason if you ask. So if they tell you that, they are way more likely to just think about that experience again in their mind. And now they're way more likely to actually get this issue solved and get the window tint. That's the first thing. The second thing is what I call, you need to gather the information you need. And I'm sure you guys do this already. You'll ask them the vehicle, year, make and model. You'll ask them if there's any existing tint. And you can also ask them like sort of what tint they want. And I phrase it like this, like let's say they want it for the heat. And you can say, oh, for the heat, people typically tint like the sides, back, and the front windshield, since it's the biggest glass. But I guess, what did you want to tint? Okay, so you can ask them that sort of stuff as well. And that's another very important part of the sale, because this information is needed, right? You can't sell without that. Now, once you do that, there's basically 2 options that you can take, okay? And this is basically, if you're good at sales, and if you're not as confident or if you're just starting, okay? You present two options because I'm sure you guys offer a ceramic or a carbon. Very few people I speak to, they don't offer a carbon film. I suggest you always have a downsell. But let's say you have two options, a ceramic film and a carbon film. If you're better at sales, I always like to present the highest price ceramic package first, because you can always downsell from there. So let's say they say it's too expensive. You have to admit them to say it's too expensive, by the way. But let's say they say it's too expensive, then you know you have a cheaper option. Let's say it's $400, or for some people, they charge like $350 for carbon. So let's say that is the case. You can always downsell on that call and still get the sale. But if you're not as confident, just sell carbon. And what you can do is when they come in person, you can upsell them on ceramic. So if you're not as confident in sales, if you're not confident with getting the objection out that it's too expensive, just make it simple. Say, hey, it's going to be $350 to do all of that. Unless obviously they want the heat. If they say the heat, then you have to mention ceramic. And then once they come in person, you will be surprised how many people actually end up upselling. So very, very important on how to sell. Now, one thing that I have to mention is that after you present the price, unless they are what I like to call a lay down sale. So what I mean is, like, unless they were gonna buy anyways, no matter you call them or if you just texted them the price, or if it was an AI bot booking it, or if it was an online booking form, like if that was the case and they would have bought anyways, then they will say, yeah, that's no issue. But you will notice that a lot of people have an objection to that price, and most of the time they won't even tell you the objection. And this is where the sale is made. Now you can do this stuff in this, but it's a little more advanced. So just focus on handling this objection, and I'm going to tell you exactly how. But you should know that if you're not getting objections, you're basically not selling, okay? And selling is actually something that takes effort, right? And if you always hope for the people that, hey, I'll say it's $600 and they're like, no questions asked, when can I book? Then you're just waiting for that to happen, and then that can never actually happen because you're not actually improving your skills and creating a scenario where you actually handle someone and take them throughout the whole thing every single time. So, don't blame the market. Don't say it's the competition is too cheap. Don't say it's the leads. Just focus on what you can change internally, because what's the alternative? If you blame the market, then what? Like you're never going to get your goals, right? So focus on what you can actually improve, because that's going to help. So going to objections now. Now, sometimes they will tell you the objection upright. Like they will say, oh, that's too expensive, or like, damn, that's a lot of money. Most of the times, in 90% of the times that I've experienced, they will say something like, oh, thank you. They will say, oh, I'm going to think about it, shopping around, and you talk to my wife. Now, if you're hearing a lot of, like, let's say you present the price and they say, okay, thanks, and they hang up, that means you're not actually framing what the next steps are. So what you should do instead is like saying, oh yeah, so to get, the heat, to protect yourself from the heat so that your family can, also get the privacy, X, Y, and Z, like it's going to be $600 and we're going to tint the whole car. We can talk about like next steps and scheduling. How would you like to proceed from here? Or like, we can talk about next steps. So like, I guess, what would you like to do? And having that question, that way they cannot say, oh, thank you, hang up. They have to give some sort of excuse. So the first step is just to get something out. Now, all of these different excuses are just smoke screens. These aren't the real objections. Most of the cases, the real objection is like, oh, it's too expensive or whatever it is. So step one is you have to find the real objection. And let's say they say, oh, I'm just shopping around. Oh yeah, that's not uncommon. I guess when you shop around, like what are you kind of hoping to hear from these other shops? Okay. And then they will say something like, oh, I'm hoping to get a better price, or like, I'm hoping to get this. And that is the real objection, because now they're saying that it's too expensive. Okay. So you have to find the real objection first. Very, very important. Let's say they want to think about it. Oh yeah, that's not a problem. I guess, what were you wanting to go over in your mind just to see if I can help? That's how you think about it to get the real objection. Let's say they want to talk to their spouse. Oh yeah, that's not uncommon. I guess, what do you think they'll say? And then they'll say something like, oh, they'll probably say it's a little expensive, this and that. So the first step is to get the real objection, okay? After you get that, can you proceed? If you don't get the real objection, then you're just gonna never be able to handle the objection, because you're in this fantasy world of like something that doesn't exist, if that makes sense. But after you get the objection, you need to educate them, okay? And to educate someone, you have to frame yourself as the authority, okay? And that way they will actually understand. So what typically happens? What typically happens is you're priced at, let's say, $500, okay, and your competitor is priced at $300. Now you know that when they go for someone at $300, they typically might end up with a lower quality film. Okay, the film might bubble, the film might fade because their installation is not as good as well. And there's a few things of what happens when they go for a cheaper option, such as like maybe they're not getting the heat rejection they want. Maybe they're not getting the quality that they want. The main thing is you know that as a tint shop, you've been in the industry, you know that. The customer does not know that. Okay, the customer does not know this. They're just thinking, okay, this guy's charging me $500. This guy's charging me $300 for the exact same thing. But like, I'm not stupid. I wouldn't go for someone who's charging $200 more, right? So they don't know this, and it's your job to educate them so you can get the sale. Okay, and this is why sales is important, because you have to educate them for this stuff. Okay, so ignore this part. Like, I need to edit this, but like, let's say they have said, okay, it's too expensive, and you need to educate them. So here's an example of how to educate them. And by the way, if you want like this step-by-step script, which I've blurred out a little bit, on how to actually do all of this stuff, like literally word for word, just comment below the word script, send me a DM on Instagram and I'll send it over. But here is one example of how I would educate them. So for example, let's say they're going to shop around. Oh yeah, that's not uncommon. I guess, what are you hoping to hear from these other shops, just to see if I can help? Oh, I'm looking for a cheaper price. Or like, let's say they've spoken to a few shops and they've gotten some quotes, and the quotes are like 300 and we're 500. So then you want to say, yeah, and that's totally fine. Like, before you go, can I share a perspective with you if that's fine? And they'd be like, yeah, sure. So I guess, have you ever considered, John, if like these shops are able to price themselves like $200 cheaper, have you considered what they might be sacrificing on that's allowing them to price themselves at that price point? Like, is that something you've ever considered? And then you've planted the seed of doubt, and that is where they're going to start thinking, well, okay, that's a good question, right? And our job as a salesperson is just to plant that seed. We never want to talk bad on the competition, but after we have got them thinking, you want to say, yeah, and can I share, like, in our experience, just being in this industry for so long, and by the way, like, it's totally your choice who to go with, but if it's okay, like, can I share my experience? They'll say yes. Well, typically what we've seen is when people go for something that's a little bit cheaper, they don't actually end up getting what they want. And what I mean is, like, the film will typically, in the best case, last maybe a year, but in a lot of the cases, it's going to last about 2 months before it starts bubbling, peeling, fading. What actually ends up happening is they have to pay more in the long run just to get it removed, because there's an extra charge for that, and get it redone properly. So I guess for you, like, what's more important? Is it more important that you kind of get this done, you solve that problem, or is it more important that you get kind of the cheapest price and, you know, maybe have to reinstall it later and deal with all of that hassle and actually pay more in the long run? I guess for you, and this is totally a choice, like, what's more important for you? And you'll be surprised how many people actually internalize this problem and just start realizing, like, okay, this will happen if I go with a cheaper option. Because at the end of the day, man, there's people in your market who just want the cheapest thing possible, but there's a lot of people in your market who want a good job for a good price. And these are the people we need to convince to go from like a good price to like good job, but it's going to take like a higher price. So that is how you close. Little bit of a spiel over here. If you want the exact script, then I will send it over to you. But just these questions that I've given you over here, use them, and I guarantee that you will close more deals. So I'll see you guys in the next video.